How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Today is Monday, October 7th, and what a day of football we had yesterday, right? If you stayed up the entirety of all the games, you would have saw from 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time here where I live, all the way through 1 a.m. the following day, a whole day, pretty much into the next day of football. And there was a lot to talk about. There's a lot to cover on today's show, just going over through some of the biggest matchups while also previewing tonight's game as well. We're not completely through Week 5, so we're going to preview that later on in the show. But we're going to talk about Sunday Night Football, the Ravens win over the Bengals, the Houston and Buffalo game as well, plus some more stories on today's show. So make sure to stick around and tune into that. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make during the show, please make sure to use the new Super Chat feature just by clicking the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. This way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything you'd want to say on any of the topics or anything related to yesterday's games as well, don't hesitate. Drop it in the chat box just by using the Super Chat feature as well. We appreciate you guys using that, and it's a big help for us here at the network, so go ahead and use that and be part of the show. I always love it when you guys are part and asking me questions and whatnot. So we got now the first topic on today's agenda, talking about the Sunday Night Football game we had last night. It was a battle of wills, pretty much. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys outlasted the Steelers last night and got a 20-17 win over Pittsburgh. Pretty back and forth the entirety of the game. After about an hour and a half weather delay, of course, Dallas improved to 3-2, while Pittsburgh suffered back-to-back losses to go to also 3-2, now dropping below the Ravens in the race for the AFC North. So costly loss for the Steelers, but a massive win for Dallas and for Dak Prescott. Because if you look at the stats coming from this game and how the players performed on the night, you look at Dak Prescott, 29 for 42 for over 350 yards. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a fumble as well. Rico Dowdle undoubtedly having his best game of his season, 20 carries for 87 rushing yards, and Jalen Tolbert, another guy that stood out from the Dallas Cowboys, 7 receptions for 87 yards and 1 touchdown as well. And the Cowboys players, some of the guys like you guys might not even know of, Rico Dowdle and Jalen Tolbert, stepped up to the challenge where they were needed in situations where CeeDee Lamb was double covered or anything like that, and Dak needed somebody to throw the ball to. These guys came up time and time again, and also Kevontae Turpin. He was becoming a real problem for the Steelers last night, so all those guys stepped up. Whereas for the Steelers, Justin Fields, compared to last week, a pretty pedestrian day. 15 for 27 for 131 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. Najee Harris, another lackluster performance, 14 carries for 42 yards for a running game that hasn't been as dominant or really existent as people would have thought. And also the passing game, if I'm saying Najee Harris' contributions in the running game aren't really there, the passing game is even less than that, because Najee Harris had the most receiving yards out of anybody with 35, leading all wide receivers in that. And we had Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens, and Van Jefferson near the top of the stat sheet with 3 receptions. And you have 3 guys having 3 receptions, and none of those wide receivers had as many receiving yards as Najee did. And I think that pretty much sums it up there for the Steelers, passing problems that they have. But we're going to talk about that in just a second. But we're going to talk about the game and what kind of happened throughout the contest, because in the first half, it consisted of not too much action if you were looking for offense, which if you were looking for offense in this game, you probably haven't watched a lot of the Steelers or the Cowboys that much this year. But like I said, the first half consisted of 4 punts, 3 field goals, an interception, a fumble lost by Dallas. But even still, throughout all of that, they were leading 6-3 going into the half. And Pittsburgh's offense off of that point really didn't get going until the second half, where in their first drive, they kicked off that second half with a touchdown to Connor Hayward to take the lead 10-6. And for as concerning as I was with Pittsburgh's defense, allowing Rico Dowdle and guys like Jalen Tolbert and Kevontae Turpin to kind of have their best performances of the year, the Steelers defense did come up with 3 turnovers, right? They intercepted Dak in the red zone. That was more his fault. That was a really weird and just bad throw to Dante Jackson. And then the fumble. Again, I mean, you got to be more aware, obviously, of, I guess, TJ not holding the ball for that long. But, that's just a great player on the other side. TJ Watt getting his 100th sack. So not too much on him. And then the last one, he's just taking a shot, and Joey Porter Jr. makes a great play on it. And throughout all of that, again, the Cowboys never felt like they were really out of this game, which is a problem for the defense, not being able to stop them, but for also the offense, because you never really felt confident that the Steelers, pass game, running game, anything was going to get going. It just looked like a real struggle to produce anything from that point. And then after that, for as much as I praise the Steelers for getting those turnovers, they also had a couple mistakes with the first touchdown to Rico Dowdle where Deshaun Elliott falls, and there was just too many miscommunication errors where Minkah Fitzpatrick might call a play, and not everybody knows the play, or not everybody knows where they're supposed to be. A lot of blown coverages. A lot of guys just not knowing who they're supposed to cover, and there was a lot of plays last night where the Cowboys players were, I think there was like a 10-yard radius or something like that where they made catches in very open, fields of play, which is not a good sign, obviously. But still, the game remained close. The Steelers' defense held on as much as possible. But it was until that ending part of the game, obviously, where the Steelers go down. They score another touchdown after a unnecessary roughness on George Pickens, and Justin Fields throws a little shovel pass to Pat Freiermuth. They take the lead 17-13 with about, I think, 5 minutes left, a little bit under that. And, credit to Dallas for putting together the drive. But again, for as much as I praise the Steelers for kind of holding on with their defense, they always talk about wanting to be in those situations where the defense is the one relied upon, and they just couldn't get a stop. TJ couldn't get home. The coverages, again, weren't really the tightest, if you would say, and it did come down to a 4th down play, and that was an amazing play also by Orlando Roberts to force the fumble on Rico Dowdle. Luckily for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott was there. That was still a tremendous play, but it came down to a 4th and goal, and the pressure didn't really get there. Those situations you miss Nick Herbig, who was out of the game, Alex Highsmith, obviously, who is your original starter. You miss those guys, right? Because Dak won't have as much time to find potentially Jalen Tolbert going across the middle if he has Highsmith or Nick Herbig in his face. But because the protection was able to stand, and Deshaun Elliott kind of got caught a little bit behind Jalen Tolbert, not getting over the top of him, then you get that touchdown. Great catch, great throw still. But, overall, my thoughts from this game, it was more so the Steelers' defense. The biggest thing about them just not getting off the field on 3rd downs. That's back-to-back weeks now where they allowed, I think, almost over 50% conversion rate on 3rd down. And while that's not good, you look at the other side, and their offense just isn't converting on 3rd down either. They might have converted at most 3 out of probably like 9 or 10 that they had last night. So those two obviously don't mix, right? You can't have one be very bad on defense and then the other one be abysmal on offense as well. To kind of keep it close, you're going to have one of them be very good, and the Steelers have failed to do that in back-to-back weeks now. And if you don't get the offensive performance from Justin Fields and this offense just in general like you did in the Colts game, you get disappointing results like this, right? It never felt to me like the Steelers were in total control. The Cowboys were missing chances, with the turnovers and things like that. But it's not often where your defense creates 3 turnovers and you still win, or you still lose, I guess, in that sense for the Steelers. But, the Steelers, it's funny because they said all week how they were trying to start faster, and this game might have been the worst one that I've seen them, try and get things going faster, right? Ironic how they said that, and it was their worst performance, right? For a team that is very limited at wide receiver, and that really is a major problem. For George Pickens to have 3 receptions on 7 targets just can't happen. There are some footages of maybe him not running the most, I don't know, the most effortful route or something like that. It might need some work, but still, you got to find ways to get him the ball any way you can. Screens, things like that, out routes. I was waiting all night to see him just run a quick out route for them to just throw it to him because it seemed like he hadn't touched the ball since the first quarter, but that never came until like the final 7 minutes of the game in the fourth quarter. And also off of that, you can say what you want about the run game a lot, but it's just not working consistently because the offensive line just really hasn't meshed up until this point, and it might still be considered early, but there's too many missed assignments, not enough people getting to their blocking assignments. I saw a couple plays where the Dallas defenders just got to the runner before an offensive lineman even touched them, and that just can't happen. Those are missed opportunities there. Also, the biggest thing that's going to come out of this is going to be the quarterback, right? 2 back-to-back losses where Justin played very good in the one game, and then this game he sort of drops off. But to me, it's not the problem. He's far from it, honestly. He's the easy solution for a lot of people when the game goes wrong or the losses are there. It's easy, Justin, you're out. Let's bring Russ in, right? But that's just an easy cop-out to me. I think the problems are a lot deeper than that. You look at the lack of receivers. There was a lot of plays to be made there, from George dropping wide open passes, Van Jefferson dropping a great pass from Justin Fields on the back shoulder. When your offense is limited already and it looks like you're kind of churning butter out there, like you can't get anything going, you need those plays to happen, right? If he makes a great throw like that, it can't hit you in the hands and then you drop it. That's honestly the truth. And Russ getting in there, quite honestly, isn't going to help these guys get open and isn't going to help the offensive line block any better. It might even be worse, and the sack numbers might start to pile up if Russ can't escape out of there like Justin Fields. So, there's no surprise that Pittsburgh's still looking to trade for a wide receiver, obviously, and I think they're going to need to go out and get one desperately if they want this to look a bit smoother going forward, because none of the receivers really can get open in short space distance. Like George is a good receiver, right, obviously, but the quick lateral, just trying to get open, route running technician kind of receiver, I don't think that's really him. You need a guy like that, and it's ironic that they got rid of that guy in Deontay Johnson. I'm not saying they should regret it or anything like that, but because I think Dante Jackson adds a lot, but still, they just need another guy. You need to go out and trade for someone. There's a lot of guys on the trade rumor, reportedly, so we're actually going to get to that later on in the episode, but still, Dallas gets a massive win. As much as I critique the Steelers, it's a huge win. However Dallas got it, I always want to say that a win is a win, so that was a big win for Dallas. Considering their schedule coming up, they're going to need to be 3-2 now, because I don't see too many wins coming for them later on, and plus it adds to their injury list with Marshawn Kneeling getting hurt, their left tackle Jalen Guyton getting hurt. The Dallas Cowboys can't catch a break, but they certainly did get the win last night, so that is a positive for them. But we're going to move on to talking about some more games. Honestly, one of the most entertaining ones, arguably, was the Ravens and the Bengals. A great overtime game, a lot of offense in that game in contrast to this one. So we're going to talk about it, break down the great performances by Lamar and Joe Burrow, plus some more coming up right after this break.